Good afternoon, Kitchissippi. It is Saturday, January the 18th. This is a video version of the 420th Kitchissippi Weekly Ward Newsletter. There's lots more links and information about the topics we'll discuss in today's video in the weekly email newsletter, to which you can subscribe at kitchissippiward.ca. Significantly more substantive than last week's newsletter, so we'll dive right in. I will make a quick note. Stage 2 LRT that runs between Bayview Station and Limebank Station had a very successful launch over the past few weeks. They are now ready to go from 5-day-a-week service to 6-day-a-week service starting on January the 25th. Remember that they have that phased launch, but on January 25th they'll go to 6 days a week service. If that works well for a couple of weeks, then it will move on to 7-day-a-week full service. In the newsletter this week, I do have pop-up office hours that are coming up on January the 21st. Those are going to be held from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. at Drip House in Mechanicsville. That's at 121 Parkdale. Make sure you don't go to the Drip House that is next to the Parkdale Market. Pop-up office hours are a chance to come by anytime during those hours, sit down with me one-on-one without appointment, and chat with me about whatever is on your mind. A couple of really interesting things for you this week in the newsletter. First, I wanted to call attention to what I brought as a notice of motion, so an intent to bring a motion to the Planning and Housing Committee meeting on February 5th to open our neighborhoods to shelters. Our official plan made a big change when we passed that in 2021 to prohibit any kind of restriction against shelter use in any urban zone. We are in the process right now of updating the zoning bylaw. It will implement that change, but that bylaw is not going to be passed until December at the end of this year. In the meantime, I can foresee that there are going to be opportunities to take care of things like federal funding for the acquisition of smaller properties where the city or our partner agencies can temporarily house newcomers. I don't want to lose the opportunity to take advantage of that funding if something does come through, or other shelter potential uses because of zoning bylaws. So I am proposing to accelerate the change we're going to make anyways at the end of this year and do it in February. I have a long blog post on the website at kitchissippiward.ca that delves into my reasons for exploring this, and I would certainly encourage you to take a look. Also in the newsletter, I am standing in front today of 250 Lanark. You know that that is the former Health Canada, the former CBC building that is currently being used temporarily as overnight shelter. That's expanding our overnight shelter capacity. I do have finally public confirmation that it's going to continue in that capacity until the end of February. That's in a memo to which you can read in my newsletter. But we are still trying as a city to get permission from the federal government to use it until the coldest weather is gone, ideally until the end of April. There's an interesting wrinkle. This land has been declared surplus by the federal government, and we have been wondering what the feds plan on doing it for quite some time. A number of us have had an inkling that it would be put in the service of Indigenous housing, but thanks to a tweet from Senator Brazo the other day, we know that the land is being offered to Kitchissippi. Kitchissippi is being asked to pay for the land. There's a referendum that is coming up in which KZ is going to decide whether or not they want to spend, I think it's $24 million to acquire this property. So as far as I'm concerned, the future of the land is unsettled until KZ actually determines whether it wants to purchase it or not. In my mind, that means that we should be able as a city to continue to use this as overnight shelter until the end of April and get us through the colder months. I've got a lot of calls out right now since yesterday to see whether or not we can do that. I hope I'll have an update for you in the next newsletter. Also in the newsletter this week, at 342 Roosevelt, that's been a property with a number of different proposals put on it over the years. The owner is seeking permission for what is now proposed as a 6-story apartment building with 26 units. All the application documents for that are online. Now that there's a firm proposal, I know my office will be working to set up a open house so you can ask questions about that. And there is a related variance at the empty property, 346 Roosevelt, that I'll get into in a moment. So at the Committee of Adjustment, they are meeting on February the 5th. There's a number of applications for Kitchissippi Ward. You can find all the details of these in the newsletter link. At 451 Roosevelt, the owner is seeking to subdivide the property into 2 parcels and permit reduced front yard and corner side yard setbacks with a reduced corner side yard triangle for the conversion of the existing dwelling into a semi-detached dwelling with additional dwelling units. So sounds like a reno where they want to add units to the building, but that'll put it afoul of the zoning bylaw, thus seeking the variances. At 346 Roosevelt, reference my note earlier with respect to 342, the owner is seeking to permit reduced frontage, interior side yard setbacks, and lot area for the construction of a 4-story, 6-unit low-rise apartment building. So it looks like on that empty lot, they're proposing with something that basically matches the zoning with the requirement for variances. And at 60 Hampton, the owners are seeking to sever the property into 2 lots for a proposed semi-detached with reduced rear yards and setbacks for garages, a reduced lot width and area for one of those 2 lots. The McDonald's, last week I pointed folks to the fact that McDonald's is applying for a rezoning in order to be allowed to not offer parking at the location at 388 Richmond Road. They've been asked to be relieved of that. The Committee of Adjustment refused them, so they're in for a rezoning with the city, which is going to proceed as one of the first under the new rules for staff authorization of minor rezoning. So that'll be interesting to watch. But what I wanted to say this morning is that all of the application documents are now online. I have a link in the newsletter. Those are available at Ottawa Dev Apps if you want to Google it up yourselves. And this morning I am standing in front of the parking lot at 200 and 210 Clearview, where I think it was a couple of years ago, the zoning approval was given in 2023 to infill this with a tower. It would be a 25-story building that goes in here into what is currently a surface parking lot. They have now filed for site plan. That's a more technical level of approval, but the application documents should be going online very soon, again at DevApps. They're not online yet. When they are, I'll point to them in the next newsletter. Lots happening in the community. The Westboro Village BIA is hosting a stew showdown. I've been asked to help judge that, about which I am very excited. You can sample some of the best stews in the city and submit your picks. That's going to be held on February the 8th from 2 to 4 at All Saints Anglican Church. The proceeds for that are going to go to the Westboro Region Food Bank, which is going to be hit hard by some of the cutbacks at the Ottawa Food Bank. So really important to come out and support the Stew Showdown that's going to be held February 8th from 2 to 4 p.m. Find your tickets in the newsletter. Elmdale Book Fest is coming up. No surprise, it is one of my favorite used book sales in the city. That's coming up on Friday, February 7th from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Saturday, February 8th from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. That used book sale also has a great bake sale associated with it. There's video games, puzzles, all sorts of great stuff. For the books, it is all killer, no filler. One of my favorite book sales in the city. They are still accepting donations of books in good condition at the school's main entrance doors during normal school hours until January the 30th. The Ottawa Catholic School Board has asked me to point people to the registration process for children who were born in 2021 to start kindergarten in September 2025. There's instructions for how to register at the Ottawa Catholic School Board in the newsletter. Just follow the links. And then finally at City Hall, we are back up and running with committee and council meetings. The Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee is going to be meeting on January the 23rd. That'll be an interesting one. There was a parcel of land that was proposed to be acquired at council by the city in order to preserve some natural wetlands, or sorry, some natural areas. Council wasn't comfortable that it had all the facts at hand, or why we would spend a fair bit of money on preserving that particular section of land. So it has been referred to the Agricultural and Rural Affairs Committee. They'll grapple with that when it meets on January the 23rd. There will also be a report on the official plan and zoning amendments that would allow battery energy storage systems in locations around the city. I expect that is going to generate a few headlines, the battery storage systems being somewhat controversial among some stakeholders. And then on City Council is going to meet on Wednesday, January the 22nd. It's a relatively brief agenda that mostly just deals with planning and housing matters that have already been passed, but they'll be particularly timely. But I know all eyes are going to be on whether or not the recommendation that came out of the Planning and Housing Committee at our meeting last week to do further work on creating a rent-evictions bylaw is going to pass or not. Those of us who support it believe that we have all the votes we need at City Council. I think it will pass easily, but I know people will be watching that particular that particular vote. And then as well, we have the midterm governance review. That document isn't available yet. That'll be tabled at our next council meeting, but that's often watched by council watchers to see whether or not there are going to be changes in the committees, whether there are going to be any new rules to how we conduct ourselves proposed. So there'll be, I'm sure, some headlines coming out of that item when we meet on Wednesday for our City Council meeting. At Kitchissippi, it is nice and warm. The cold weather's on the way. Stay warm. That polar vortex is on its way and giving us some traditional January, February weather. I thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope you have a great week. Thanks, Kitchissippi.